Jason.
What's up, Brad?
How do you define success?
Oh, man, that's a great question. I don't, you didn't give me like the preamble of what we were going to discuss. I have to think about that for a minute. Success. I guess it's just achieving whatever goal you set in front of you. So it could be something small, right? You can be successful in a really small goal or a big goal, but I guess success would be achieving whatever goal you're putting in front of you. That could be one definition. I'm sure there's more.
What do you feel is success where you're at? You're an academy owner. Mm-hmm. You're a international level instructor for combatives. You lead a huge, growing following of officers that are trying to get into more realistic defensive tactics. You do all this stuff. So what to you now is successful?
Well, those things I do are more. I haven't even thought of it as something that would be that I consider a success or not a success. I think some of the things you're mentioning, like teaching police officers and stuff, and trying to encourage cops to train. That's more just what I'm just trying to share a message I think is beneficial to police officers. There's actually, I guess the goal was to get more, and still is, to get more police officers training. And I think that's happening, but that's not happening because of me. I think I'm just one of many voices that we've run into and met on this journey who are pushing people, like, because they know, they've experienced it, they've trained, they've seen the benefits of training in the field and working. So they're just trying to get the message out also. And we've been doing it for a while. And so we've connected with those guys. Like you're one of those guys, Chad, Mike, those guys. They're all the same. We're all doing the same thing, Ari, like from different spots. But I never thought of it as trying to achieve a success. I think I just thought of it as just trying to get the message out and trying to help guys out and trying to get more guys to train. Literally that simple. Like, it was nothing more complicated than that. I didn't have like a 5-point plan on how I'm going to change the face of law enforcement. Nothing like that at all. It was just...
I've got one if you want to see it.
I would love to see it. But, it was just, I think, but when you put it in those terms, I'm not, in that terms, I don't think I'm successful yet, if that was my objective. If I was to set an objective, I think I'm in the process of helping to keep spreading the message and getting it out more and more and encouraging more guys to train. I think those things are happening. By any means, I don't think we've really accomplished anything yet in law enforcement. I think we're at the very beginning of seeing some changes, and I think positive changes for a change. Not to keep using that word, but versus some of the old stuff that was taught and some of the old mentality that used to be around and is still around to a large degree in some places. But I think you're seeing a change in combatives and in martial arts with police officers. I think you're seeing a change there, a realization of what works, what doesn't work, and how important it is for us to get better at that. Business-wise, I don't think I'm successful. I don't really think of it as being successful. I understand I'm very fortunate in my academy. Some of that's good timing. So there's a lot of things. You know how business is.
Yeah, for
Business
sure.
is a huge amount of taking risks, good timing, educated decisions, which can lead to beneficial things. And I have a good business partner, and I think we've made some good decisions, and we put ourselves in a position to be where we're at now. We're by no means done. Like, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of things that we have to do to keep improving and keep growing. But I think at this point we've been achieving our goals that were set and achieving mileposts that we've put in front of us, faster than we expected. And now we're trying to grow to make space for the continued growth.
Right.
We're trying to get to a bigger place to make space. I by no means think successful at all yet. Like I feel like, okay, we're on the right path.
Right.
But success, man, I don't even know if I like the word. I think it's implied like you're finished with something.
And listening to you talk before you even said that, I'm sitting there telling myself, like, man, if I think back, so let's time travel.
Yeah.
Let's get in the DeLorean for a second. We go back.
All right.
2013. Shoot, let's go further. Let's say 2006. Think about the way you were with training, the way law enforcement was with training, compared to where it is now. Think about, like, you talking to people you're hearing the same excuses. Maybe you hear less of them. You see more people taking an active role. Like I would sit there if I was to be you, I would go, man, I've really achieved a lot of success with this. But I think it's cool that you're sitting there saying, yeah, but that's not done. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't.
And
like,
that does.
You be honest, because and like you didn't tell me the question you were going to ask.
No.
So some podcasts you go, hey man, I'm going to hit you this that way. They give you a chance.
No, yeah.
But I like that you did that, and I hadn't actually thought of it, to be honest with you. Success, like the word, like I don't think of it. Like it seems like such a finality. Like when my life is over, people can look back and see if I was successful being a positive influence on the people I was around. If that's the only success I really care about. So if that happens when I die and you guys are looking back, well, he was a positive contributor to everybody around him, and he made the world a little bit better than when he left, I'll consider that a success. All this other stuff is just life, right? I was a police officer for 24 years. I felt like I was relatively successful in my career. I was able to advance to positions I wanted to advance to, and accomplish some of the things, not everything, but some of the things I wanted to accomplish. And I got to a point where I was kind of like, I'm done. Okay, I'm ready to close this book and move on to the next chapter. And that's where I'm at right now, is that next chapter. And I'm really at the beginning of it, so I have no idea where it's going, where it's leading to. It's been exciting, but success, I don't even know if I like the word. Now that we're talking about it, I don't even know if I like that word.
You're a work in progress.
I'm a work in progress. I don't want to say I'm success because I feel like, like we talk about belts, right? When people in jiu-jitsu, a lot of times as an academy owner and a professor, you get the question of belts. When's the next belt? Or people are more subtle about it. But belts is an issue. People want to advance in rank. We all did.
I love the subtle questions, by the way.
Yeah.
Hey, so like, what do you look for that?
Do you think I could? Yeah.
Think I got to get better at something? You're like, bro.
Which of course, yeah, we all do. But if, I get it. Like belts, when you first start jiu-jitsu, especially, when you look at a black belt, it's mysterious because they're doing things you can't mechanically, physically understand how they're capable of doing some of the things. Right now, then once you get there, like there's so much further to go. Like this is just a small part, but I also feel like if people set belts as a goal, and I think we've seen this, I've seen it before for sure. People say a black belt for their term of success in jiu-jitsu is achieving a black belt. It's not my definition, but let's just say
they kind of disappear after that.
They stop learning, and they kind of become that black belt that just comes in sometimes, trains a little bit, does what they want, and that's fine if that's their personal choice and that's their journey in jiu-jitsu, and it's nothing wrong with that, right? But for me, it's not that. Like every day, you have to continue to learn. I almost feel more of a responsibility as a black belt to continue to learn and get better.
Well, you're going to get asked questions.
I have a duty if I've chosen this as my profession, right, to teach combatives and jiu-jitsu and martial arts, then I owe it to everybody who looks to me and pays me money to learn as much as possible and become as proficient as I can in the art, so I can share as much information as possible.
See, for me, that's been like a big driving thing. I feel like I learned more. I've learned more, especially when it comes to concepts and how to apply stuff. I've learned way more at black belt than I did for the years leading up to. I feel like, but maybe that's because I understand how my body moves and how in relation to other people more. But the big game changer for me was number one, getting with you guys with Invictus. And going and joining up with the C4C crew, and with the way Chad explained stuff. The concept-based thing to me was just like a light bulb, because I had kind of gotten to the point where it's like, man, I don't want to learn this 15-step to get to one spot and hope they do the right thing, where I can put myself in a position and now it's a reaction. Put myself in a new position and now it's a reaction. And being able to get with you guys and learn more for that has helped me out tremendously as an instructor. But then you had an added benefit where you talked about like with success, maybe you just have good timing with stuff, things work out. You have one of the best instructors of all time, undisputed, with some of the best grapplers of all time, undisputed, in your gym every single day.
Yeah, I do.
You have so many high-level instructors. How does that affect you as a black belt when you look in? Do you get like a little bit of like, oh, I'm not a black belt? Because I'll tell you right now, I did that when I walked into that first class.
Yeah, that room's tough.
I was like, oh my God.
That's a tough room.
I know nothing.
Yeah, that's a tough room. So you're talking about John Danaher.
John Danaher.
And yeah, so he teaches there pretty much every day. And it's not a permanent situation per se. Eventually, he'll have his own spot. But it's definitely a relationship that's budding and developing. And I've been very fortunate that, like, for 2 years now, I've been able to train with him, like, pretty much every day. And it's completely changed everything for me. And so we'll talk about the training room. So if you walk into the training room, and I'd heard people talk about the room before John got there.
Right.
But they always refer to it, like, as the room. And or at least old school guys do. And like I've heard some people say before, like, hey, there's some people that think they want to be there till they're there. And it's because it's a very humbling experience, and it's not a typical jiu-jitsu training session. It's almost like being in a university lecture, right? And then it's almost in the students to have that kind of focus. I see there's a lot of guys taking notes. Obviously, video is not allowed, but there's a lot of guys taking notes every class, and they're there every class, and they take it very seriously, and they go home. And they practice some more.
Yeah.
Like they look at it that seriously. So it's a very intimidating room. You have blue belts in there that attack black belts regularly. Like they train hard enough. But the mat time and the study time they've put in is equivalent to a black belt in many ways.
For sure.
So you have to. I had someone ask me the question the other day because they were training with a group. They're like, "What level are they?" Because it was no gi. And I knew a couple of them were like blue belts, right?
Yeah.
But they're good. And I remember I was like, well, you can't really look at the belt rank.
Right.
Well, yeah, but what belt rank are they? I said, well, they're blue belts. And I remember they were just like really? And I'm like, they are. Like, but they are here in this academy.
But I think looking at that room and knowing myself, like,
yeah.
I'm purple belt. I won a Masters World Championship. I've gotten silver medal at Pans, at brown belt, multiple like top 3 finishes at Master Worlds and gi and no gi at brown belt, won stuff at black belt. When I walk in there, I know I don't want to know what rank anybody is in there. I am going to walk in there and assume everybody is a black belt world champion.
Unfortunately, I do know most of
I know, and that would be that would mess me up so much.
I've gotten over it, and it's been fantastic because it's really, truly. So everybody likes to talk about no ego, right?
Yeah.
And they say that till they're really presented with something that's going to challenge their ego. And that room will challenge your ego if your ego is in your belt.
Right.
If your ego is in your belt, it's going to be challenged very quickly because, quite frankly, and we were talking about like one student that was like, yeah, I'm a black belt. It's like, yeah, everybody respects it.
Yeah,
but
that's cool.
They want to see what you do on the mat because if it doesn't represent on the mat, it doesn't mean anything. Don't say it doesn't mean anything, but you won't have the respect in the room that you think maybe you're due if your ego is in that belt.
I think not even from you're talking about from just performance level on the mat. Mm-hmm. For me, even just knowing the things I know, having achieved whatever tournament stuff or whatever I've done, teaching people, for me to sit down in that classroom and hear him start talking, like, number one, it's, you didn't even know he was in the room. He's off in the corner looking at his phone, just sitting down, chilling. No one's talking to him. And then it's, okay, guys, and walks over to the middle, and then you get started. He started speaking, and I was like, I know this is English. I know he's talking
Not
English.
all of it's in English.
I know, yeah, right. I know these are words, and they're forming sentences.
Yeah.
I just don't understand what the fuck he's telling me to do. I see what he's doing, and it literally took me a second to, like, let my brain find, like, a baseline where I can concentrate, hear what he's saying, and understand, like, damn, this is... Maybe I was looking for it to be more confusing, but it's so precise that it takes away the what-if questions, which I think, in turn, accelerates learning for all your students. And I'm sure accelerated learning for you. And I know every time I've gone out there is accelerated learning for me because I don't have to go, what if they do this? They are physically only able to do these 3 options or these 2. And then you have got the answer for each one. It just takes the guesswork out.
Yeah, John is very big on creating dilemmas. And it's almost a scientific approach that he's taken, and Gordon and them as well. It's almost a scientific approach they've taken to jiu-jitsu and breaking it down, infusing wrestling, infusing other martial arts that are effective, that can be used effectively in jiu-jitsu. My personal opinion is in jiu-jitsu we've had some we had the beginning,
Right.
with Elio and Carlos, and that the beginning of the
Right.
Gracies, right? I do think this is the second era. I do think John, there'll be a before and after John Danaher. Like there'll be before, this is how we did things. After, this is how we do things. I think
So,
that's
hold
how
on.
big an impact it's going to end up
So you're
having.
thinking the before Danaher era?
Yeah, like
So we're going to call it the BDE.
Sure. There's gonna be BD and
God.
AD. I really 100% believe that. Like he's changed. I used to, when he first moved to Austin, he didn't have a car, didn't have a driver's license. He was from Manhattan, so he didn't have to, right? Like,
Right.
just public transportation. So I would pick him up in the mornings a lot of times to give him a ride to the academy, just to get him on his day. And so we'd have discussions in there. And I remember one time we're in my truck and we're talking. And I'd been training under him for just a few months, and I remember thinking during that training time, like, I don't know anything. So you ask about, man, I don't feel like I'm a black belt. I did go through a little bit of a moment, like, oh, I haven't learned anything. Like I wasted 15 years.
I felt, I said that to you that first session.
We're not the only ones that feel that, but it was like, oh my God, I've wasted 15 years of my life.
Yeah.
Like I'm just now beginning again. And I even told him that. I was like, man, John, I told him that exact thing. I was like, I feel like I wasted 15 years. Like I'm just now learning jiu-jitsu. But his response was, it's not that. He's like, most jiu-jitsu academies teach kind of the same curriculum, basically.
Hey, my friend, grab, boom, pull, boom.
Right, the basic stuff, and everybody has their own slightly little things they do differently or whatever, maybe some smart. But generally speaking, jiu-jitsu, the way it has been taught.
Right.
But that's not the case with John. And it's very different how far down he's broken down jiu-jitsu. And then really the way he described it to me is he looked at it and he kind of like would look at things like, well, why do we do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even ever do that when I'm actually live rolling. Like, so why would I even teach that? It doesn't. What's the point of that? Yeah. And he would just start cutting the fat off things.
No, I've noticed like it's way more about efficiency than anything.
A huge bit about efficiency.
And what I noticed, and I think that was the reason why I had that big mental switch over for me for teaching, training, and studying was like it was back to back. I learned from Chad, and then the concept-based stuff, understanding posture, structure, base, angle, breaking things down in a more simple way like that, and then later on go back and then start training over there at your gym and getting to train those sessions with Danaher and going like, damn, it's the same thing. It's real basic. Well, if I block this guy's elbow, he can't turn and face me. So why not just do that anytime I need to get to someone's back? Just simple ways to add those things in. Where to me as an instructor, I feel like I've been able to make it so much easier for people when they walk in day one, as long as they're willing to be coachable and listen to just put your hands here and you're fine. And they go, oh my gosh, that works. I think it makes it where they kind of trust things more, where I think when we got started, we were taught, hey, push his head and grab his ankle. Now pull. And then it didn't work the first time. It's like, oh, well, I'm just not strong enough.
Right.
Or that guy's too strong, or whatever, that guy's too fast. And we would drop those positions. We wouldn't use them anymore. But it was just I never had time to build some confidence in it because I didn't have any competence in it. Because it's hey, let's do this one technique, couple reps, another technique, couple reps, all right, rounds.
Yeah.
And you just drop stuff. Whereas, the way you train now and the way that I have my students train is it's like, this is our specific round. This is our scenario. This is where we're working from. You have to work from this spot. Like you came here to learn. Why just do the thing you already know?
Well, the training mindset, and that's another thing I completely changed because before, like the way I'd always learned was you'd learn a couple techniques in class, and then it was like time to go. Let's roll, and it was just you just rolled. Like you just slap hands, and typically what do most people do? They go to their favorite position. Right, because it's their safest position. They're not getting smashed in their favorite position.
Man, that's the best thing to do.
And that's what everybody does
Right.
at first. And honestly, they're not unless they think outside of that. They're not encouraged to do anything different. They're just saying, just go train. And then the professor goes in the corner. He either trains or he goes in the corner, doesn't pay attention, just make sure the timer goes, no one gets hurt. And that's the end of class.
Yeah.
With John, it's not like that, and it's completely changed how. And he's 100% right. It's all situational. Like if you come to our academy. You're doing situational training.
The whole time.
Like, there's classes where you can slap up and roll, but those classes. 90% of the classes are not that. 90% of the classes are practice. They're treated as practice. They're not treated as let's come in and get my aggression out for 30 minutes. That won't be accepted, by the way. If you come in with that mentality, it's going to get squashed real quick. Because the mentality is we're learning, and then when we go to live session, it's practice. Like, you're trying to get better at a technique. You're not trying to beat the guy. You're trying to get better at a technique. Now, the better you get at the technique, the more success you have in your role.
Yeah.
But you got to go through the getting smashed part of each technique. You have to. Like, you're forced to do it. If we're doing half guard stuff, John's going to put you in a half guard situation, top and bottom, and you're going to have to try to use that technique or a technique to get out, and the other guy's going to counter with his. But it's going to be in that situation, and it's not going to be allowed to go outside of that. Like, it's not going to go, okay, we'll start here, and then whatever happens. It's like, no, your goal is this, to sweep or submit that guy. That's the only two things you can do. Your goal is to pass into a dominant position and pin for 3 seconds. If you win, then we switch, and now you get to try. But there's no, hey, just go. Like, it's rare. Like, if that happens, it's like, oh, it's like when a substitute teacher comes in, or like going to recess. It's like, oh crap, we get to just play.
You know, the thing that, like, hearing you talk about it, I've thought about it before, but hearing you say it out loud does make me go, man, this is so true. Is talking about like before John, you know, same thing with law enforcement training prior to, let's say, 2020. You know, it's a lot of, we're just going to do whatever. We're just going to have training sessions where it's people just fighting, just trying to get aggression out. You know, they go and they do the thing they're only good at. You know, we saw the same thing in law enforcement, defensive tactics instructors. If one guy was all about boxing, you're going to box, and you were never going to be able to, like, he would never switch stance, teach you how to fight anything. He'd always make it where it was whatever's good for him. If that DT instructor was just a spear guy, you're going to do spear every single time you do it. If you got a jiu-jitsu guy, we're going to do jiu-jitsu. And now it feels like defensive tactics is more complete, just like with jiu-jitsu is more efficient. And the training is more geared to, we have to learn and not worry about getting injured. It seems like it fits and complements law enforcement training now so much better.
Yeah, and, you know, situational training for law enforcement is,
I mean, that's the whole thing.
Like, that's everything, because we're in law enforcement, we're in such a specific type of scenario. Like, situational training is perfect because you can set up all these different situations of, well, if you end up in this position, we're going to fight from here, and you got to learn how to get out from almost everywhere, right?
How do you navigate saying, hey, we need to do these positions because they are completely applicable to what we're doing? We have to know this stuff. How do you navigate around saying we need to do this for law enforcement, but there's this hesitancy to label something as jiu-jitsu or grappling or wrestling?
You're talking about in combatives?
Yeah, like it seems like if you label something with some really cool acronym, or you have some like a Green Beret guy or a Navy SEAL, if he names his, like, this is called First Strike. Well, defensive tactics
honestly,
program.
my favorite is Special Forces guys that come in to teach cops.
Yeah.
And listen, I love Special Forces guys.
Yeah.
Best shooters on the planet. Doesn't mean they can fight. They're tough. Fucking tough guys. Alpha males, tough guys, no question. Doesn't mean they know how to do police combatives. Just because you know how to kill people efficiently.
Right.
There's two different things, right? But people assume if you're a special ops guy, well, then you can teach cops. Not necessarily. You may be able to teach cops specific skills.
Right.
Doesn't mean you can teach cops how to arrest people, bad guys. Like, those are two different kind of things, right?
Flip side of that.
Yeah.
Black belts that want to come teach cops.
Same thing. If you don't, look, police work is all about context. It's hard to explain to someone who didn't do the job what context is in law enforcement, because they see, well, just grab them and do this.
Yeah. Like,
right.
To a black belt, every black belt I've ever encountered, or any upper belt in jiu-jitsu, their whole perspective on it is, if I know a Kimura, like, all I do is Kimura everybody in every position.
Everybody. Yeah. Well, Kimuras are not. I'm not against Kimuras in law enforcement. They obviously, it's a technique that's very effective,
and it's got its place.
It absolutely has its place. It is not the answer, because there's guys. If so, let's just, for you, you're a lot bigger person than me. We'll just take out your skill level, right? Okay. You're just a big, strong, athletic guy. If I slap you in a Kimura, you can cause problems. I'm very connected to you. We're very connected. And now if I can't disconnect when that position is not comfortable for me anymore, and you can start using it to manipulate me, which can happen, it could be a bad day for me. I'm not a Kimuras have a place,
Right.
but yeah, just speaking of Kimuras for law enforcement, a black belt may assume that this is the best position ever, but it's not, and not even that, not just that. I go deeper with the context of when a police officer has an encounter with a civilian who they need to arrest, who's aggressive, fighting, whatever. You know, the level of resistance is beyond just passive resistance.
Right.
Let's just say that. The amount of variables that start to pop up while you're putting hands on people or trying to get people under physical control to place them in custody is crazy, because you have to start to consider, are they armed?
Yep.
I have no indication they're armed yet. They haven't reached for anything. I'm grabbing them in a physical manner to try to physically control them. I still don't know if they're armed. I don't know if they have a knife. I don't know if they have a gun or something else that they can use to harm me in this process. I don't know, but I have to be aware that it could be happening.
Right.
Right. If he breaks away from me, well, what's he going to do? Is he just going to keep running? Probably. But do I know he could do a big circle, come back, try to take me out?
Environmental factors with that. Am I going to have to chase someone in the rain, uphill, in the mud? Is this guy have a vehicle right next to him, and now he's going to run to the car and grab a weapon?
And the danger level for the officer physically starts to increase, right?
Huge.
But also, and unfortunately nowadays, I think officers are starting to do this. We didn't really do this back in my day too much, but now the liability concerns start to pop up.
They start thinking about it? Yeah.
Well, if I shoot this guy and it's not justified, even though I feel like it's justified right now, well, what's going to happen to me and my family?
I think that that to me is like a smartphone thing. Mm-hmm. You know, everyone wants to record every encounter with cops, so dudes are doing the job thinking about, oh my God, am I going to get a demeanor complaint because I cussed at this guy who just beat up his wife? Yeah. You know, that's the dumbest thing. But to have people having to stop and consider these things while they're doing their job is part of their job. Mm-hmm. But it can't be something that's got them so scared to do something that they're waiting.
Well, and so, right. And like going back to the context of it, is as if you haven't arrested somebody and had to take in every consideration in the moment when it's actually happening, not simulated, not practicing on a mat, but on a street, cars driving by you, guys physically fighting you on the side of the road. You've been there, I've been there. Anybody who's been a cop more than a couple of years has probably been there. They're fighting you physically, and you got to get control of them. There's so many things happening because you're out in a live situation, and there's so many possible considerations you have to take into account when you're handling this person. Policy concerns. Am I violating policy right now? These are things that are very legitimate.
It's happening.
You have to make sure you have to account not just for your physical safety, not even just for the suspects, because their physical safety, you have responsibility for it because you're trying to physically take them into custody.
When they're in custody or whether you've made a contact, they're now your responsibility. Right. So that's why officers I can't let this guy leave. He gets hit by a car. It's my fault.
So you're getting this, but when you're physically grabbing them, even though you're trying to physically get control of them, you're limited on what level of use of force you can do to get control of them. Yeah. You have a million considerations that have to be taken, into account. And someone who's never done the job has no idea what it's like to have to be going through those mental gymnastics of, is there a gun? Is he reaching for a gun? What's in his pocket? What is that? Why is he reaching over there? Okay, now I'm seeing red flags. I'm starting to see those
contact cues.
Cues, pre-contact cues that's showing he might want to fight or he might want to flee. There's a million, and what does fight and flee mean to him versus, there's a million things. What did he just come from? There's so many factors. And if you haven't been on a street at 1 a.m. by yourself, doing this, right? And I've been there with multiple suspects.
Everybody else is on calls,
waiting for backup, and just man, where are the sirens at? Been there more than once, and many cops have. And it's there's no way someone who hasn't done that job can teach it and understand that context. I think that's why people like Chad and Mike, and we're talking about Mike Bland and you, whatever, people who have the training level of a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but not just jiu-jitsu, but we're combatives experts. We're capable of teaching a wide range of combatives, weapons retention, fundamentals, stuff like that. we understand what use of force is in a law enforcement context, how it's interpreted.
We've looked at Chapter 9 a lot.
A lot. We've had to go to court.
Yep.
You know, many of us testified on behalf of people, testified on our own use of force. You've had to justify. You've had to sit before a board. You had to sit before supervisors. You had to sit before a chief, watch a video, and justify your use of force. We've been there. We've gone through it multiple times. And now we have the skills to teach how to do it effectively and efficiently and to prevent you from getting caught up in a situation where you didn't have those tools and you did something that got you in trouble.
But the thing that everything you're saying is right. I know everything you're saying.
Right.
But it has not changed. It has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Things have gotten way better. People are training more. But when you describe being on the side of the road at 1 o'clock in the morning, trying to arrest someone, you have to fight them, and you have to go through this checklist of all these things. Oh my gosh, you start second guessing yourself. I have been there, but I have not been there in the way that a lot of other guys have because I train. Like I trained before I was a police officer.
That's right.
And I remember going through the academy, and after the DT sessions, an academy instructor would be like, "Hey, so how'd you get out of this thing that I tried? Or how do you do this? Or what's this setup?" And I would just be like, "Oh yeah," I'd show them, and it didn't dawn on me until way later. It's like, "Oh my God, why do these guys not know? They're teaching me. Why am I teaching them? If I was at a jiu-jitsu academy or I went to a kickboxing academy and I walked in and I did a class, and then at the end of the class, the instructor came over and said, 'Hey, can you teach me boom, boom, boom?' And it was simple, basic stuff. I would wonder, is this guy checking to see if I know my basics? Like, is he testing me? Like, why does this guy not know this?" And that was a huge red flag for me that I did not recognize as a red flag at the time. And it stayed that way for the duration of me being in law enforcement. And there was that constant, like, nope, PPCT is the answer. Krav is the answer. But I feel like just being able to put my hands on someone and not have to think about punching or kicking or elbowing them made it where I didn't have to worry about, is this going to be justified? I knew that if I could not physically handle somebody, I could do one of those strikes. And if that would not work, I knew I could escalate and I could articulate to someone, no, I wrestle people all day long, every day. I've fought people that know what they're doing. This guy obviously knew what he was doing. Yeah. So I had to do this.
You know what's funny? So I will say it is changing because and you've been out there too, out to Mesa.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
No,
Mesa's. So I really believe that could be the future of law enforcement.
It should be.
For any medium to large size agency, right? Smaller agency, they're going to need help connecting with one of these agencies to get consistent training the way they're doing it. But I think it's changing, and I think Mesa's a great example. And it's Dan, I believe, is the assistant chief out there running. Yeah, Dan Butler. And
super good guy.
Got to meet him last time I was out there. Awesome guy. And I remember him telling me, like, when he knew he had to make a change, he knew, like, a lot of us intuitively knew. Like, I started as a police officer before I was training.
Right.
But within a couple of years, I was like, oh, I don't know how to fight. Like, I'm athletic, but I'm small. And I can tackle people and hold most people down, like most average people. But I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I'm just grabbing and holding.
There's a difference in just like, I'm just kind of making this work.
I knew it. And so I sought it out, and I found jiu-jitsu. And then, of course, everything changes. But it's funny, once you start training, when you touch somebody who doesn't train.
Oh, it feels so, you're like, oh, this is easy.
There's a clear difference. If you touch someone that trains or has some type of background in grappling and fighting, you know it because you feel the proper movements and the proper counters and the proper things.
Anytime I had like a self-defense situation or whatever, like combative situation, and I grabbed them and they don't know the language. They didn't tense up and turn the right way.
They don't know the language of fighting. And so you immediately recognize that.
I'll get relief.
They
like,
don't know this.
Thank God.
All right, now this is I still got to work. It's a pain in the ass. And, resisting people still suck. It's still hard.
Right.
But, all right, they don't know this language. So it's going to help. And I remember Chief and Mesa, we were talking because we trained a little bit, and we got a chance to talk, and it was really nice because I really enjoyed talking to him because he's very forward-thinking. And he realized once he started training and he went to one of their combatives classes, and whoever the instructor was, they touched, like, to do something. And he was like, he doesn't know the language. Yeah. He doesn't know the language. And he was like, and he's teaching my officers how to do this, and he doesn't know the language. Like, he doesn't know how to fight.
And that's everywhere.
And that's very common. Now, he took proactive steps to change it.
That's so cool.
And so now they got, I can't wait to go out there again. Like those guys are on the ball. Yeah,
Same.
those guys. That chief's on the ball. And that's an example. That could so be an example for departments across the country to increase and it has affected them a lot because just when I was there that last time, hearing the officers tell the stories about, well, we use this and that to get everything under control. Right. And even hearing the chief tell me, like, I've seen the video change. Like, I was watching the videos, I've seen the improvement to where now I see guys efficiently segmenting, cuffing.
Yeah. You don't. It's not 5 officers fighting each other to get one person down on the ground.
No, it's not the monkey fucking a football thing. It's not the police pile up. It's like efficient work getting people detained and cuffed in as efficiently as possible, as efficiently as you can get it done, you know. And it's these are not high-level jiu-jitsu officers. They're not. They're training proper combatives that are jiu-jitsu based. But like if you go roll with them, regular roll, like it's nothing spectacular. But when it comes to
for what their job is, but
they don't put a lot of effort in, but they put enough that they're competent, like their blue belt level competency, which is what you need really to perform the job. And if you got 2 or 3 officers working that are blue belt competent and on the same page with combatives, they can do amazing work.
I would prefer blue belt competent instead of the Andrew Yang thing of every cop needs to be a purple belt, because that means they would always show up late to briefing. And they would berimbolo everybody.
They'd be the last to the call. They'd show up last to the fight.
How have you, like, what was your experience? And what would you say to those officers that do show up last to the fight, that don't want to train defensive tactics, that don't want to lift weights, that don't want to eat right, that don't want to, let's say, as far as taking care of themselves and what they can do for their job and their squad and their community, like not taking care of their mental health? Like, I can tell you when I was an officer, for me personally, I did not take care of my mental health. And on top of that, I used I can fight and I can beat any of you guys in a fight, so I don't need to go and run and CrossFit and everything. So I looked like Meal Team 6, you know. I was doing that, you know. Yeah. I was definitely the officer. It was like, hey, where are we going dinner tonight? Well, Whataburger, you know.
Of course.
Working nights the duration of my entire career with law enforcement, even in the jails before that, I made that an excuse that because I can fight, I can neglect all this stuff. I look at it now at 41, not in the job, going, I have to be in shape all the time, because if I'm going to promote and tell people you got to be healthy, you got to take care of yourself, you got to be in shape to fight, you got to be able to last. Well, heck, man, like I can't be a sloppy 280-pound dude. I've got to be functional, healthy, move around, because I'm not going to get any younger. Like, what for you is the best advice you would say to those guys that are neglecting all those things or making the excuse like I did, because I do work out and I CrossFit all the time and I'm in good shape or whatever?
Oh man, I'm an asshole. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm an asshole.
But
I'm an asshole. I think I'm a nice asshole. But if you don't want to do the things, if you don't want to do the things that are necessary for you to do the job right, like I think you should get out. Straight up. And what I mean by, and let me like expand, because I want to be very clear. Like if you don't want to learn how to fight, you need to get out of the job.
100%.
Because putting hands on people is like one of the things we do more than anything else. Like we put hands on people every day. Even a small agency puts hands on people every day. Like you have to be competent at controlling human beings. Like you have to be competent at it. You've got to have a fitness level. You can't just be a fat piece of shit walking the street. You can, but you're a huge liability. You're no longer a service to your community. You're a liability to your partners that are working with you. You're a liability to people you're supposed to help. You're a liability to yourself. You're a liability to your family. Like, this is not your profession. This is... I used to say this, and I don't think most cops think of it this way. And I'm not even sure I did at very first when I first got into it, although when I got into it, it was very much to help people and chase bad guys. All the cool stuff, you know.
Drive fast, carry a gun.
It wasn't for money, for sure. Yeah. Drive fast, live, whatever. But I will say that if it's a warrior's profession. Like being a police officer, warrior's profession. You strap on a gun, you strap on gear. You go onto the street and you say you're going to find bad guys who want to harm society, who want to steal, hurt people, whatever. You're going to find them and you're going to physically stop them. And you're going to put them in a car, and you're going to put them in a jail, right?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't happen just by your presence. That doesn't happen just because you're wearing a badge. doesn't mean anything. Your uniform means nothing to many people, and I've experienced that. Like they don't care. Like it doesn't matter. They have zero respect for your position. And I think some people don't realize like there are human beings that don't care. And if you're not prepared to physically to confront them with violence if necessary, then you need to get out. And being able to confront someone with violence is not I see red. It's not I have the willpower. It's not
you don't know my mentality, bro.
You don't know my mentality. You know, it's not like, no, I'm a man. Like I heard someone tell me, no, I'm a man. I was like, that means nothing. Your genetic, what you were born with has no anything to do with if you're capable of fighting me.
Yeah.
Like it has nothing to do with it. Like you can be a man all the way to your grave. Like it doesn't matter. You have to do the things you do to do this job right. To do this job right. If you want to be the answer, then be the answer. If you don't want to be the answer, like if you don't have the discipline to be the answer, I think you need to get out. Like you have to get out. And this, it's okay. This job is not for everybody. Being a soldier is not for everybody. I'm not saying we're soldiers. I'm saying difficult jobs or jobs that require you to apply physical force and lethal force sometimes. It's not a job for everybody. It's not everybody in society can jump in and fill those roles.
So the other side of that is, though, that everything you're saying I agree with, but the majority of officers are not that.
You're right, and it's a
like
problem.
The gross majority. It's so many people.
You're right. I do think it's changing a little. But yeah, I think you're right. I think law enforcement sometimes is a refuge. Why does it attract that, though? It's a refuge because it's a refuge for people to find a decent paying job that doesn't have to have a lot of high requirements. And what I mean by that is educational requirements. It's not that it's easy to be a cop. You still got to go through polygraphs and psychs, interviews, and people get to physically talk to you. And if they're like, something's off,
right?
Something's not right here. We're going to move on from this person, right? Like there is a process. It's not super easy to become a cop. But the educational level is not high. Like you don't have to have a doctorate or a master's. Some places require a bachelor's, but most don't. And I'm not even saying that
most
you should.
Most is like 60 hours
or military
whatever,
or something like that, right? And I'm not even saying that there should be. It's not like we're not rocket science. It's not rocket science,
definitely not,
right? But what that does do, I think, is it attracts applicants who, well, I'll go be a cop and I'll sit in a patrol car and I'll write some tickets and then I'll have benefits and I'll have enough money to buy a house and I'm good. And that's it. Like there's no thought of serving the public. It's This is a job that can feed my family, feed myself, whatever. That's the only way they look at it, right? But I don't think they should be in law enforcement. Those people need to find jobs. Find another job that doesn't require people's safety to be put on the line, right?
So why are those people? So we already have figured out those people go to it, but those people are also the ones that promote. And those are a lot of times those are the ones that make policy and say this is the defensive tactics you're going to be doing.
I don't know if they're the same people. I think maybe I would disagree with you, Brad, on that. I don't think those are the same people because I think the people that do that are the ones that sit on patrol for 30 years never advance. Right. Just do that and just get through their day, 8 hours. Try to avoid the messy calls. Don't get in trouble.
Right.
I think mostly those guys are that.
Just don't rock the boat.
Just like they're not. They have no whatever. They're not trying to achieve a higher office or anything. They're just like. I think they're just ate and skate. That's all they're thinking of. Now I think the unfortunate thing that happens and we were talking about this a little bit yesterday. I don't think it's exclusive to law enforcement, but I think there's there's individuals that seek higher positions in their company, in their department, and maybe they shouldn't be there. But they're not. They don't have the right mindset. Maybe they don't have a server's mindset as a leader. They have a mindset of you should serve me as a leader.
They have a corporate mindset.
Well, sure, and I've never been in corporate, so I've seen it, so I kind of understand what you're saying. But I think it's people that want power that probably shouldn't be in those positions. They want positions of control and power. And maybe they shouldn't be there, or maybe they haven't earned it because they did avoid hard calls. They did avoid the hard positions, and they did go through dispatch and supervise dispatch for 15 years before becoming captain. There's a lot of guys that have done that.
Sounds personal. Well, that sounds like somebody you know.
I know of a couple that have done that, and things like, and they've navigated without putting themselves in a position to get in trouble. But what that's done is it's created an officer who's never done the job.
Experience.
So when they're supervising officers doing the job, And this guy, they want to know why he hit him 10 times instead of just 5 in the middle of this thing. And now I'm going to come get you. Instead of being, you know what? I've been there.
I understand.
I've had to fight that guy, and I've gotten spit on and bit and kicked. And then we were trying to get this guy under control. And maybe there's a couple too many shots or whatever that happened because whatever. And there's a way to address that, and there's a way to train officers to deal with that.
Yeah.
But understanding it and saying, I understand it, we got to address it.
It's way different.
But
than
here's how we address it versus someone who's never been there and had to put themselves in that position. They're going to look at it from the mindset of, well,
that person's going to look at like the general public that doesn't have any concept of
That's
police
exactly
work.
right.
They have no context
and they're going to
for
think,
it.
oh,
Like,
you're just a
I can't believe he shot that guy that was just holding the knife.
Yeah,
it's like,
whatever.
Oh my God,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those, I think that's what it
Yeah,
develops.
for sure.
But there are a lot of, like, you know, they look at the lady in Mesa PD, and I don't try to beat a dead horse.
Hey, I
it's a
will
great
say-
example of a leader. I will say that the assistant chief at DPS.
I was going to say the
Justin
same thing.
Crane, fantastic example, man. Like he gets it. He's done the job. He trains jiu-jitsu. Like he understands.
He's grinding out as a blue belt.
I think he's a purple belt
Purple
now.
now?
He's got to be purple.
Dude, he's in there
belt.
like wrestling and beating people up.
CrossFit. He's great fitness. Like Justin Crane's awesome. So there's good examples too. You know,
When you talk about people avoiding stuff, what is the best excuse you've heard for a guy of why he can't train?
best
So let's
excuse
do-
or
let's
most
do-
common excuse.
Ooh.
That's a tough
give me both. Give me both. Most common excuse.
Most common is too busy.
Too
I got
busy.
family. I got kids.
I don't have enough
got. I say the second one would be money. But I always work with everybody. A police officer,
Same.
first of all, get a huge discount, and if you can't even afford that, we'll work it out. We'll figure
Right.
something out. But yeah, I would say money and time is the two most common ones I hear. And look, there's some legitimacy to the time thing when
100%.
you've got kids and a wife. Look, they require you can't be one of these professional grapplers that's there 2-3 times a day and studying all day. No, but you can be there 3 times a week.
Yeah,
and you can you
100%.
can work on your combatives and work on your jiu-jitsu, work on your grappling 3 times a week. And I think you can balance that with family life too, right?
100%.
And I think your family should want you to. They should want you to come home at the end of your shift, right? They should want you not to be on YouTube in a bad example.
Yeah, when guys tell me cops are just regular dudes, and they tell me I can't train because I got to get home my wife and help put the kid to bed and stuff like that. It's like, well, okay, but when that kid goes to bed at 6:30 p.m. and there's classes on through the evening, or you know that you're going to have to go to work the next couple of days, you're not going to be there to put the kid to bed then. So I understand why you're doing it, but also isn't there some validity to I need to come home safe? I'm doing it for my wife. I'm doing it so I'm not an asshole when I get home, so I can burn off some aggression, so I can get some stress.
Mental health is a huge aspect of it.
I think I saw a meme. It was, don't you feel like an asshole for going and doing the gym instead of spending time with your family? And the person says, no, because if I'm around my family and I don't go to the gym, I'm an asshole.
Yeah.
So then I definitely feel like an asshole. It's like, oh, makes sense.
You should want your partner to be well balanced and to do the things they need to do to. That's, I think, part of being a good family member, being a good spouse, But yeah, of course, like those are good things.
People that want to train Invictus.
You go to we train Invictus.
Train Invictus. So for people that want to train or want to ask questions about getting in law
Invictus.
enforcement, do you go to Invictus website? I know we've put
100%.
stuff on. Like if people want to put something on at their local academy or their department, how do they do it?
Well, if you want, so you can put your academy on our website. You can reply to be put on our website as a law enforcement friendly academy, and so we have a huge list of academies around the country who are apply to us. What we do is we do a little checking, just to make a couple phone calls. If you have police officers that train there, we'll talk to them just to make sure, this is a great environment. Of course it is if they're there, right? But it's a great environment. We love training here, and so we'll put you on our website as a recommended place that we recommend as a police officer you can go to and you feel safe and whatever. Although, I'll be honest with you, I think 99% of police academies, jiu-jitsu academies, are very safe great for police
100%.
officers. They're glad you're there because they train, so they get it. They're like, hey, you guys need to be good at this because then that crazy stuff we see on video would be not happening as much because all you got to do is this, and this.
Yeah.
And they get it. All you got to do is these 3 things to pin them and you're good. So most academies want you there. But yeah, we can get you on our website. If you just general questions about Invictus, we have Instagram, we have our Facebook. We have our website. So anything Invictus LEO Jiu-Jitsu Collective, it'll get you to all those things. Myself, I'm BJJ_cop, not cops. On Instagram, and then Ari is the REK on Instagram as well. But you can find all our stuff. We post Invictus stuff and jiu-jitsu stuff and combative stuff. You'll see me posting alien stuff, so don't freak out about that. My stories, but
so much.
But yeah, follow us, man. If you have questions about anything, shoot me a question, shoot Ari a question. You can even email the website. One of us will get back to you, and any way we can help out police officers trying to train, start training, find a place to train. That's one of our big missions that we're trying to accomplish. So please contact us. One of us will get with you for sure and help you out.
Ready to go train?
Let's go do it.
Let's do it.
All right.